Dawn in the fortress city was always cold and heavy. Only the sound of a heavy iron sword scraping against the floor of the training ground, where the fog had not yet cleared, broke the silence.
89, 90.
Thick drops of sweat flowed down over the small scar on his cheek, earned while surviving roughly on the streets of the slums in his childhood. Transparently shining cold blue eyes through his disheveled brown hair pointed straight ahead. Hands and wrists were numb, but the grip on the heavy training sword remained unyielding.
He grunted with effort as he pushed himself through the final repetitions, carefully pacing his breath as he counted out 91, then 92.
Deep inside his chest, a small fragment embedded in the center of his heart began to pulse hotly. It was a piece of a star that fell from the sky, and the sole power that had sustained Arthur, who was once a destitute vagrant until now.
Basic swordsmanship repetitive training is in progress. Reaching physical limits activates the flow of mana. The aura level of the stigma has increased from 65 to 67. Swordsmanship proficiency has reached 85% of the apprentice level.
Scanning the red and blue symbols rising tinglingly in a corner of his vision, Arthur let out a ragged breath. There were no shortcuts. Only this blood and sweat shed every day could prove his stats in consistent numbers.
Still not enough. I'm barely a squire of the order. There's only 1 month left until the apprentice knight exam.
Just then, the dull sound of footsteps trampling the cold stone floor at the entrance of the training ground was heard. It was Jackson, a large man with one sleeve empty and tied up inside his clothes, a retired official knight of the Silver Lion Order and Arthur's master.
You are making a fuss from dawn, Arthur. The tips of your fingers holding the sword are full of stray thoughts. If you only blind yourself to the goal right in front of you, you won't be able to cut what you truly need to cut.
Sir Jackson, I am sorry. My heartbeat became faster than usual, making me impatient.
Jackson scratched his rough beard and looked up at Arthur with blunt eyes. Although he had retired from active duty after losing one arm, the overwhelming aura of an official knight that he emanated still weighed down the entire training ground.
It is true that the mysterious star fragment embedded in your heart brought you faster aura growth than others, but remember this: aura is not a simple weapon. Power, unaccompanied by duty and responsibility, is merely violence.
I am well aware. Protect the weak, keep faith, and do not succumb to injustice. That is the knighthood you taught me, sir.
If you know it, that's fine. But Arthur, that knighthood is not proven in a fancy order banquet hall or at a swearing-in ceremony. It is proven down at the bottom, on the filthy streets, where filth and greed intertwine. I brought a low-tier district pass today, so go check my words yourself.
Jackson tossed a heavy leather pouch to Arthur. Inside the pouch were the patrol log for the outer district of the Empire's border, and a pass for the Golden Scales Merchant Guild.
If it's the low-tier district, isn't that where the orphanage I grew up in is located?
Yes. Rumors are circulating recently that those Golden Scales Merchant Guild bastards are ruthlessly squeezing non-human workers and the poor, using the mining rights in that area as an excuse. Go inspect the situation under the guise of a patrol, but do not forget, you are still a squire, not an official knight. Do not draw your sword recklessly.
Understood, Sir Jackson. I will keep that in mind.
Arthur shoved the worn training iron sword into its sheath and tightly tied the straps of his stained leather armor. The heart in his chest beat thump, thump, and throbbed softly. In that slum, which was like his hometown, young siblings he still had to protect remained.
Never cease. but win. The lower district of the Imperial Fortress City was a world completely isolated from the splendor of the upper district. The rough stench of the beast folk, the acrid coal smoke exhaled by dwarves, and the cries of destitute human orphans filled the narrow alleyways.
Even after several years, the scenery here doesn't change.
Arthur stepped on the cold paving stones and moved his feet slowly. Although he wore a patch with the Order's squire crest on his stained leather armor, the residents looked at him with vigilant eyes rather than welcoming him. To them, the Order was also nothing more than an oppressive ruling class. Just then, a sharp shout burst out from the open space in front of the nearby orphanage. Along with the sneering sounds of rough men, the sound of luggage tumbling onto the ground and breaking echoed out.
Hey, are you deaf? If you couldn't fill this month's stellarite mining quota, shouldn't you hand over this land at least? What do you take the Golden Scales Merchant Guild's contract for, to offer such small change?
Barrett, a mean-looking man and an intermediate action leader belonging to the Golden Scales Merchant Guild, was blocking the entrance of the orphanage with tough-looking mercenaries. In front of him, a half-elf woman with broken feathers staggered while clutching a bow.
Ugh, don't speak such nonsense, Barrett. This orphanage is a non-human charity area protected by imperial law. We cannot acknowledge the usurious debt you raised arbitrarily.
Law? Talking about imperial law when you're just a half-elf, half-breed? The law in this area is decided by our Golden Scales Merchant Guild. Hey, push her aside and drag out the children inside the orphanage first. Since labor is short, we'll have to use them as mine laborers at least.
No, don't lay a hand on them. These children are innocent.
Sophia tried to draw her bowstring, but a large mercenary next to Barrett swung a club and struck her bow away. The arrow was thrown to the ground, and Sophia fell roughly onto the dirt floor.
Titter, that's what happens when you try to get uppity. Do you think there's anyone in this area who dares to oppose our merchant guild?
Watching that scene, Arthur's blue eyes cooled down coldly. The star fragment embedded in the center of his heart began to emit an intense aura along with a sharp pain.
Knighthood oath conditions have been detected. The will to protect the weak and resist injustice is activated. The stigma's aura responds. Physical force enhancement and trajectory prediction functions are turned on.
Arthur moved his feet silently. The heavy sound of dull iron armor boots trampling the gravel field echoed heavily throughout the alley.
Huh? What's this? Who? Huh? Isn't it a brat wearing a silver lion order badge?
Barrett scanned Arthur's worn leather armor and chipped training iron sword, then soon snorted.
Hey, brat squire. If you want to play knight, go to the upper district and chew on some meat. This is a district managed by the Golden Scales Merchant Guild. It's no place for a mere squire who isn't even an official knight to butt in.
Run away. They aren't simple merchants, but vicious mercenaries who dominate this area.
Sophia, the half-elf archer fallen on the ground, warned him, but Arthur did not stop. He merely stood silently and held the hilt of his iron sword firmly.
Take your hands off the children.
What? How dare a beggar like you order who around? Hey, break his arms and legs and throw him into the trash bin.
At Barrett's signal, two large mercenaries jumped at Arthur, holding iron clubs and daggers. They were mercenaries swinging weapons with rough momentum, like wild wolves of the West. But in Arthur's eyes, all those movements only looked slow.
Star's guidance visualizes the enemy's attack trajectory as a line of light.
In Arthur's vision, the paths where the mercenaries' weapons would pass were clearly drawn as blue lines of light. Arthur dodged the iron club sideways with just a single step, minimal movement.
First,
Imperial Basic Swordsmanship, Third Form, Parrying. Arthur's training iron sword sliced through the air and struck the side of the mercenary's iron club accurately. With a dull impact sound, the grip of the mercenary's hand burst open and the club soared into the air.
My fingers.
Following that, the moment the second mercenary approaching with a dagger hesitated in panic, Arthur accurately struck the guy's jaw with the heavy pommel at the end of the sword hilt. Without even being able to scream, the second mercenary collapsed onto the floor with a concussion. It was something that happened in less than 3 seconds.
This makes no sense. How can a mere squire, without even using aura?
Unbelievable! He read all those fast trajectories?
Barrett took steps backward in confusion, but soon glared sharply and pulled out a heavy morning star imbued with stellarite magic from his breast pocket. It was a dangerous weapon, enhanced with minerals secretly leaked from the mines.
Die, you lower-class trash bastard!
Barrett swung the morning star wildly. The morning star, wrapped in silver magic, fell toward Arthur's head at a terrifying speed. It was a weight that was physically difficult to block.
Knighthood spirit, bear trials yourself for the weak.
Arthur did not dodge. If he ran away, Sophia and the young children of the orphanage behind him would be caught up in it. Arthur focused all his will into the star fragment in his heart.
Knighthood oath fulfillment rate temporarily surges. The stigma's aura swells up. The aura level increases from 67 to 69. Blue starlight mana imbues the blade.
Over Arthur's transparent training iron sword, a subtle and cold blue aura wrapped around like frost. It was a materialized crystal of mana that even an apprentice knight could not handle easily.
Aura? Wrapping aura when you're just a squire? Impossible.
Imperial Basic Swordsmanship, First Form, Downward Strike. Arthur's sword, holding starlight, collided head-on with Barrett's stellarite morning star. An ear-splitting metallic sound shook the alley of the lower district. Vivid cracks began to form on Barrett's iron morning star, enhanced with minerals, and soon it shattered into pieces with scattering sparks and bounced away.
My weapon, my hand.
Unable to endure the shock, Barrett tumbled onto the floor and screamed while wringing his hands. Arthur walked quietly and drew the tip of his iron sword, crackling with blue light, right before Barrett's neck.
Leave the contract and debt ledger and get out of here. Swear that you will never harass this orphanage and the non-human workers again.
I swear. Please, just spare my life. The ledger is here.
Barrett threw down the crushed bundle of documents from his breast pocket onto the floor as if flinging it, and then ran away hastily on crawling-like feet, leaving behind the knocked-out mercenaries.
Prevented coercive plunder and protected the weak. Knighthood resonance has increased. Maximum aura capacity increases.
Arthur let out a rough breath and withdrew the blue aura he had wrapped around his sword. Instead of the extreme side effect that felt like his heart was burning up, a refreshing and heavy power circulated through the blood vessels of his entire body. It was a gift from the stars, given only when keeping an honest conviction.
Are you all right?
Sophia, the half-elf who stood up rushing off the dirt, was looking at Arthur with eyes that could not believe it. Her long ears twitched finely with vigilance and astonishment.
You said you are a squire of the order, right? But I've never seen the Silver Lion Order directly draw swords for non-humans or lower-class people like us.
I am also from the bottom of these alleys. My name is Arthur Reynolds.
Arthur Reynolds. I am Sophia, an archer living by helping the children of this district after losing my house. By the way, what on earth is that sword of yours and the blue light in your eyes? The purity of power is too solid to call it simple, basic swordsmanship.
It is merely the result of grueling training, and it is also because of my personality that cannot tolerate owing debts.
Sophia watched Arthur's silent and unlying eyes, then soon let out a deep sigh and smiled. It was a gaze from which vigilance had disappeared.
Thank you, Arthur, but you must be careful. The Golden Scales Merchant Guild is not a simple group of merchants. They are trying to usurp dwarf and elf territories by force to monopolize stellarite, a mysterious mineral coming from the mines on the Empire's border.
Stellarite?
Yes, and Barrett, whom you just chased away, is merely a very small henchman of that merchant guild. Behind it, a larger and more dangerous force is intertwined. Rumors are circulating that they are also secretly communicating with Blood Rose, an extremist knight faction on the Empire's border.
The moment Sophia's words ended, the star fragment inside Arthur's chest caused a fierce vibration like never before. It was not a simple aura reaction. The star fragment of his heart itself was roaring in response to that mineral. The word stellarite.
Warning. Fundamental resonance signal detected. The roots of stellarite and the stigma's aura share the same origin. Track the conspiracy between factions.
Arthur silently placed his hand on his chest. Along with the pain in his heart, his aura level surged unstably. This star fragment was not a simple growth system. It was the key pillar to a massive conspiracy that would shake the entire empire.
Arthur? Your complexion turned bad. Are you hurt somewhere?
No, it's nothing. Sophia, take the children and go inside to a safe place. The Golden Scales Merchant Guild might retaliate again over today's matter.
What are you going to do?
I will return to the Order, and I will report to my master what is happening at the bottom of this city.
Arthur put the ledger into his breast pocket and turned around. However, even before he could move his feet toward the Order's fortress, an ominous red smoke signal rocketed up above the sky toward the Order.
Isn't that the emergency alarm signal flare of the Silver Lion?
The red smoke pointed toward the center of the upper district, where the Order's headquarters was located. Arthur's eyes shook coldly. It was in the direction of the training ground, where his master, Jackson, was.
Sir Jackson.
His master's teaching struck his ears. Knighthood is proven not in a fancy ceremony room, but in places where filth and greed intertwine. But now, that stage of proof was moving inside the Order he had believed in without a doubt.
Sudden main quest has occurred. A crisis inside the Order has been detected. A spy from the Blood Rose faction is moving. Rescue Master Jackson.
Arthur readied his sword without hesitation and began to sprint toward the Order where the red smoke was rising. Cold dawn wind blew over his stained leather armor, and the starlight in his heart dug into his chest and burned hotter than ever.